Viewer discretion is advised. The following content may contain material that some viewers find disturbing or offensive. While we strive to create content that is informative and engaging, the topics discussed today touch upon sensitive subjects. We believe in open discussion and exploring complex themes, but we also understand that certain content can be challenging for some individuals. Your well-being is our priority. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, please feel free to click away. We encourage you to proceed with caution and take care of yourself. For those who choose to continue, thank you for joining us in this important conversation. We appreciate your viewership and encourage you to follow our channel for more thought-provoking content.
But the sky chose fire, and the earth chose pride. Now serpents sit where saints once prayed, and Eden burns where the lambs were laid. Ashes over Eden, no more sacred stone, only twisted relics in a no man's zone. Heaven's gates are shattered, stars are dripping red. Ashes over Eden, the living praise the dead. Trust. They told us God would choose a side, but the sky chose fire and the earth chose pride. Now serpents sit where saints once prayed, and Eden burns where the lambs were laid. Ashes over Eden, stars are dripping red, and Eden burns where the lambs were laid.
Crusades 2.0. Learn how the Crusades saved the world and how a new crusade against the globalist technocrats and their Islamic allies is essential to the survival of the West. Join the new crusade.
You better believe you got one! And then you see all over the Western world where Westerners are taught, don't ask a woman out, it's rape. But the aggressive Muslims and all the rest of it, they can grab little girls as sex slaves. That's okay. They don't get in trouble. And so you see the epidemic of women converting to Islam. They think the West is oppressing women, where women are super empowered. But then they think Islam is great because it's predominantly not white and it's anti-Western, and the left celebrates it, so they convert to it. And here's some examples of that. Just liberal white woman says she's converting to Islam after hearing a call to prayer over a loudspeaker. This very same leftist, I'm sure, where 30 years ago got all the church bells banned. And then meanwhile, some excellent historical breakdowns about the takeover of Islam. But in this one report, they talk about how Islam invaded Europe for 500 years, and the Crusades was a response to that. It's 650-something years. Okay? I mean, by the time Muhammad was dead, he'd taken over thousands of square miles, and 100 years after he was dead, he'd taken over the whole Middle East, and then it's on. It's on. And then the Crusades was a response starting in the 1200s and the 1300s because they pushed all the way into Western Europe. None of that's taught in school, even though it's mainline history. None of that's taught in the movies, all the Ridley Scott movies about the Middle East. We're the bad guys. We're invading. We're evil. The Muslims are perfect little angels. And the average person is so historically illiterate, they don't know this. So let's play back-to-back this lady converting to Islam. Then we have another, I mean, I see hundreds of these a day if I wanted to look. I mean, literally, I see dozens a day without even looking. Islamic Imam explains how they're going to take over America. A good breakdown on Spain might have won the World Cup, but they don't remember their history. They won't exist anymore. That ties into Muslims today are not hiding their intention to conquer. And then that goes into some of the other breakdowns that I've got here that we're going to be going over. Here's those reports. Oh, she loves it. It's so wonderful. And she's got her headphones on. What does that even mean? She loves people making her listen to something. Can I go play AC/DC outside her house? But this is Stockholm Syndrome.
One day you're going to be the president of the United States of America. No one, go Michael Ali, who can stop you from becoming a president. Dream big. Have a vision. Because if Barack Hussein Obama can be a president, Sohaib Jawad cannot be a president? Yeah. He's going to be a president. He's talking about that the Muslims will take over Mecca. They used to laugh at him. What happened? What is Mecca now? Where is Mecca? It's coming. Change is coming to America. And what is Allah telling us? Kuntum khayra ummatin. You are the best of nations. You're better than everybody else. That's what Allah is saying. Let's work towards that. Let's work towards a Muslim mayor. Next election that comes in, nominate people for the school board of education. Next election that comes here, nominate people for the local township. Begin the demographics change. People converted. There's a big, huge conversion going on in this country. Where are the converts? They just convert and they're gone in the wilderness. The other thing, children. Muslims have the highest population. Average, they did Pew Foundation did a research study, Pew Foundation, and they said that Muslim household average is 3.4 child per family. The white American has 1 child per family. We're already beating the march. Because these are voters. These are not just babies being born in hospitals. These are voters. That's the way a politician looks at it. We have to change the framework and start looking at things from a different lens, different angle. For future. You're not going to change society today in your lifetime. But you think of...
Why aren't young people taught about the historical relationship between Christianity, Islam, and Judaism? It starts with 1492, being the bridge to the New World. And you can't understand the problems we face in 2025 if you don't understand what happened back here. And it really is true that all roads lead back to Rome. which is why I have been and will continue to try to get Roman Helmet Guy to teach classes for us. So in 395 AD, the Roman Empire split in two. And while the West collapsed in 476, the Byzantine Empire would last for another 1,000 years until it was conquered by who? The Ottoman Empire. So it was conquered by Islam. And the Ottomans would conquer Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, Bosnia, Albania, Macedonia, Hungary. And you heard that right. Greece was ruled by the Ottoman Empire for 400 years. And the Ottoman Empire would enslave 5 to 10 million people, and as many as 3 million Europeans. And not just men, but women. From Hungary, Ukraine, Russia, Greece, Italy, and Spain, forced into a life of institutionalized sexual slavery in the Ottoman Empire. And dating back to the year 718, Islam had conquered Spain. In fact, it had conquered an immense amount of territory, and it would take nearly 800 years of military campaigns for Christians to take Spain back, which overlapped with the Crusades and finally ended in 1492. And you have to wonder, if people were taught real history, would they be comfortable with the changing demographics we're seeing all across the Western world? As for the second straight year, Muhammad is the most popular baby name in England. But in 1492, Spain was liberated, which gives you some context of how the Spanish Inquisition came about. And that same year, 1492, the Jewish people were also expelled from Spain. And Christopher Columbus would depart for the New World at the same time, which he talks about in his writings, which is really interesting. But like the Muslims, the Jewish people always had a distrustful relationship with the Christian world. And at that time in Spain, they were accused of being a subversive force within the country, with many people claiming that they had metaphorically opened the gates for Islam to come into Spain. And they faced different but similar accusations in other countries around Europe. And just like in Spain, they would be expelled from many of those different countries. Now, I'm not making any claims. I'm just describing the historical turbulence that has existed between these Abrahamic religions. History may or may not repeat itself, but it definitely rhymes. And through the proper and accurate study of history, we could better understand what's happening in England, what's happening in Europe, and what's happening in the United States. Because we owe it to young people to teach them how we got to where we are today. And that is what I love to help parents with. And it's why we've been studying the age of discovery. Check out my private homeschool community. And Cubs to Bears, books, classicallearner.com. And I would just like to add that I have absolute respect for Christian people, Muslim people, Jewish people, all people. And in my opinion, accurate historical studies actually help improve the relationships between all different people.
But here's a fun fact. The Crusades happened because of Islam, because Islam is not a religion of peace. The first crusade began in 1095, but it wasn't because Christians were looking to pick a fight with their neighbors and baptize the whole face of the planet. The first crusade was called only after 4 centuries of Muslim aggression.
It's actually 600.
The first crusade was called 460 years after the first Christian city was overrun by Muslim armies. 457 years after Jerusalem was conquered by Muslims. 453 years after Egypt was taken.
And I know this lady, she's really smart and great. In fact, I wish she wouldn't have retired and got married and had kids. She's been in the studio before. But the point is, she's technically right that there was some Christians fought back after 400 years, but it wasn't the official, England and France and everybody and the Normans going, rah. I mean, the big stuff started. The reconquering of Spain started 600 plus years after they got taken over. So and that's really when it kicks off, okay? So she's technically right. I'm right, too. I shouldn't split hairs about this. I'm sorry. Let's go back to it.
3 years after Italy was plundered, 427 years after Muslims first laid siege to the Christian capital of Constantinople, 380 years after Muslims conquered Spain, 363 years after France was first attacked, and 249 years after the capital of Christendom, Rome itself, was sacked by a Muslim army. The First Crusade only came after centuries of church burnings, murder, enslavement, and forced conversions of Christians, all at the hands of Islam. And by the time the Crusades finally began, Muslim armies had conquered 2/3 of the Christian world. Look, if you want to keep living in your fantasy land where all religions are equal or where Islam is the victim, go ahead. But just so you know, history is repeating itself. Our nations are being invaded by millions of Muslim men of fighting age. This is a holy war, one that Islam started, indeed, one that Islam views as never having stopped in the first place. Islam is not a religion of peace. Its text, its prophet, and an enormous percentage of its adherents are hell-bent on breaking the cross, though they never will. There are 109 verses in the Quran that call Muslims to war with non-believers for the sake of Islamic rule. Some are quite graphic, with commands to chop off the heads and fingers and kill infidels. Their holy book also says that Muslims who do not join the fight are, quote, hypocrites, and are warned that Allah will send those people to hell if they don't join the slaughter.
Within 100 years of Muhammad's death, Islam conquered 70% of the Christian world. This was a conquest. Islam is not a religion, it is a political movement. Islam masquerades as a religion for us to accept them into the West as freedom of religion, but under the religion, it is a political movement that seeks to take over the world. In Spain, there was 1 million Muslims living in Spain, and in one day, if you study history, in one day, 500,000 Muslims converted to Christianity. In one day, 500,000 Muslims left their religion and became Christians. Wow. And the Christians thought it was revival. The Christians thought, wow, this is revival, God is moving, the Muslims are turning to Christ. But later on they found out that the 500,000 Muslims that became Christians were not real converts. They were simply lying to the Christians for the Christians to allow them into their nation, to allow them into their homes and churches. And later on they found out that the Muslims were going to church on Sunday, worshiping Jesus, taking communion, getting baptized, but on Friday, they were gathering in the mosques, strategizing how they were going to take over Spain. So there was this double face of hypocrisy, and then they found out that the Muslims that were coming in to the churches and converting, they found out that half of these guys were literally planning to kill pastors and Christians in their churches. So in 2016 in Spain, there was a pastor who had 10 Muslims convert in his church. 10 Muslims converted in his church. And the 10 Muslims, he invited them to his house. He welcomed them. He ate with them. He sat with them. He was discipling them. And later on, he found out that 6 of those Muslims were simply planning to kill him and his family. And that's why they acted like they became Christians. And that's the danger of this teaching of taqiyya. You are allowed to a non-Muslim. According to the Quran, this is what the white Americans don't understand. In the West, we don't anybody. Like that's just not what you do. We'll put you in jail. Yeah. In Islam, you're not allowed to a Muslim, but you are allowed to a non-Muslim. In the Quran, they call it what your right hand possesses. So Muhammad says if you go to war against a nation and you take them as plunder, it's not just the gold that's your plunder, the girls are your plunder. So you kill the man and you take his wife to be your sex slave, and you're allowed to do that. That's why October 7th, what did the Muslim men do? They the Israelis. Why? That's their plunder. And according to the Quran, that's not sin. In Christianity, that's wicked. In Islam, that's not wicked. That's actually approved. So if America does not wake up, cases are going to increase, and the knife and terrorist attacks are going to increase. 9/11 is going to happen all over again. And in 9/11, Dennis, what fascinates me is in 9/11, we said we'll never forget. And unfortunately, we already forgot. Zohar Mamdani is already in charge. And I just pray that America doesn't need to end up like Europe to wake up. I pray they wake up and take our warning today.
We always hear about Islamic groups attacking the West, but apparently they actually kill more Muslims than they do anybody else.
Well, Islam is just a violent religion. That's why, for example, what we saw last week in Ireland with that Muslim guy beheading the Irish guy, for them that's normal because that happens in their country. In country, there's killing every day. So you're just, what it is you're bringing in a third world country that doesn't understand Western values, and Western values come from the Bible. They come from the Ten Commandments. And you're bringing them in the West and you're expecting them to assimilate, but they're not assimilating. They're simply bringing in their Middle Eastern Muslim values into America, and it's just not working. It's like, the analogy I like is Raymond Ibrahim. Bringing Muslims from the Middle East into America, it's like putting a lion in a cage with 100 sheep. Imagine getting a cage and putting a lion in a cage with 100 sheep. What is that lion going to do? He's going to destroy this 100 sheep. He's going to kill them and destroy them. And we can blame the lion as much as we want, It's not the lion's fault. A lion will always do what a lion does. And same with Islam. You bring a real Muslim, and I'm not saying all Muslims are violent, but you bring a real faithful Muslim in the Middle East, in the West, they're just going to do what they always do. They're going to kill, they're going to rape, they're going to be violent, they're going to be terrorists. Why? You're putting a lion in a cage with sheep. They just don't coexist. That's the West and the Middle East.
Yeah, but why is it that so many Americans or some people in the world say, well, these, or even Muslims themselves, they will say, we're not like that. Those are extremists. Those are the terrorists. We don't believe like that. We're a religion of peace.
Exactly. So the question is Islam a religion of peace? There are peaceful Muslims around the world. Not every Muslim is violent. Not every Muslim is a terrorist.
Orthodox.
I love Muslims. I always tell people, I love Muslims, I hate Islam. I love the people, I hate the ideology. But unfortunately, when people say that the Muslims that kill are radicals, the Muslims that kill are extremists, that's just not true or factual at all. The Muslims that kill are actually the real faithful Muslims.
That's right.
Because the Quran commands Muslims to kill the
We need to take this guy. We need to get him on the show. Watch him for years. We need to. He used to be a Muslim, if I remember correctly. We need to take his clip and then like a 20-minute video though of just imams. He says something and then show 5 imams saying exactly that and show the Quran. Because I mean, they go on international Islamic TV and the Palestinian TV. I played the clips and say we take their women, anybody who's not a Muslim, and we enslave them. And your husband is allowed to have sex slaves and put them in as prostitutes. We're allowed to sell drugs to the infidels, the kafirs. And, I mean, it's hell on earth, people. It's absolute hell on earth. It's incompatible. It is a nightmare. And I've run into a lot of Muslims that are nice people, okay? But the Orthodox ones, they're the ones you got to watch out about. They're the real Muslims. There is a
Breaking
massive
bombshell.
sale-
Iran Foreign Minister Spock's Esmail Bagay exposes what you're not going to hear from Western media. U.S. and Israeli aggression left Iran no choice but to close the Strait of Hormuz. You couldn't really risk passing through this waterway while there were military attacks against Iran. So we did it out of our responsible approach towards navigating in the Strait of Hormuz.
I think it's key for people to understand that by killing the Ayatollah, it's not a one-to-one comparison, and I'm not a Muslim, so I don't want to say anything about it, really. But killing the Ayatollah is equivalent to killing the Pope, you know, to a large portion of people. And when you do that, even more so when it's the Pope that banned the nuclear weapon in like 2003, 2004, it creates this reaction through the population where, you know, it's hard to believe in America. You know, you've been propagandized so much, and there's people in the audience that are scoffing right now, but the Ayatollah was a moderate, and we killed him. So now I just want you to talk about that a little bit, about the impact of like, how do these people feel about losing that figure?
That's a great point. He was very moderate. And funny enough, you know, in the West, they've been given this idea, or they've been presenting this position that, guess what, the leadership, Ayatollah Khamenei and his son, Mujtaba Khamenei, and the leadership are like some kind of radicals. And they basically are forcing the public into a war, or forcing the public into the scenario that we're seeing, or forcing the public into a situation where they don't want to normalize with America. And it's actually the other way around. When I went on the streets of Iran, it's the people who want revenge. It's the people who want justice. They've seen their supreme leader, as you said, it's the equivalent of the Pope being killed. They saw the children of Minar being murdered. They've seen all this civilian infrastructure being murdered, and they want justice and they want revenge. And you have the leadership who basically wants to try and negotiate, want to try and keep the channels open for negotiation. And so the people are pressuring the government to basically respond to the aggression of the United States of America, which is totally opposite to what's being relayed and what's being claimed. And what's interesting about the entire situation is you basically have it where in reality, these people, they just want peace. But what's being forced upon them is war, and therefore they're responding. And so when I went on the ground in Iran, the biggest, most obvious thing that I saw was there was more red flags than there were the flags of Iran. There were more red flags than there were flags of the resistance, because the red flags symbolized resistance, it symbolized justice, and they symbolized revenge. And they wanted revenge. And this is why we had the statement come out from the Supreme Leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, who relayed the views of the people to say that, look, we want revenge for the actions and the illegal killing of our innocent civilians.
Okay, speaking of that, I want to go to, I believe this is Arachi, the Iranian foreign minister, the latest tweet. I have that under the interview section of the rundown. More statements are being made. We're going to get into Massi and Ro Khanna being blocked from voting on the NDAA, as well as your interview with the who was your interview with? The spokesperson for the foreign ministry?
Yeah, he's the foreign ministry spokesperson. He's probably one of the highest ranking people who can speak English, and
Right.
you see him on airwaves all the time speaking. And so, yeah, it was an honor and a privilege to interview him. I was one of the only 800 journalists who got that privilege while I was in Iran.
And this is one of those things, as we pull up the latest tweet from Arachi, guys, if we can do that, I want to make this very clear to the audience. When you're not shown stuff like this from the mainstream media in the West, that's them lying to you, right? You going over there, Suleiman, you can say, oh, they're biased, it's their country. You're damn right they're biased in the same way that we are, right? But it's them talking. And if you don't hear the other side, that's for a reason. They want to control you and co-opt you into a war that cannot be won. And the thing that I take away from the Iranian position is their very stark acknowledgement of reality. It's that interview that Arachi did where he's sitting there smiling, going, do you know what it's like to go into a meeting where everyone in the meeting knows they're probably going to die? As in, being hit by Israel or something with a missile, or by the United States. Like that mindset, understand that mindset is completely alien to people in the domestic United States right now. And I think that's why the funeral, of course, record-breaking, was such a phenomenon. But we can go ahead and get into the interview pretty soon. If we're ready to do that, we can go ahead and play those clips.
What they did was cheating on their commitments, because they forced vessels to go through another route, in a way getting around the Iran's coordinated route, which was safe, and we made sure that necessary works are done in order to ensure the safe passage of ships.
Do you think that, because I've been trying to understand what is the reasoning why they did that, because they were finally getting free flow of the traffic. Is the reason because they wanted to try and take control of the strait? Do you think it was they were trying to militarize it? I know it's hard to speculate, but what do you think the motive could be behind what they were trying to do?
You see, Strait of Hormuz has two coastal states. It is Iran and Oman. During the war that they started on 28 February, they abused this waterway for their military aggression against Iran. And at the same time, they used the southern part of the Strait of Hormuz, their military bases in the countries of the Persian Gulf, to facilitate and to conduct their military aggression against Iran. And we as a coastal state, we are authorized, we are entitled under international law to adopt necessary measures in order to make sure that this waterway would not be abused by the aggressors to attack Iran, to harm our national security. And that's why, in the first place, we decided to put certain measures to limit the passage of ships. And after all, you couldn't really risk passing through this waterway while there were military attacks against Iran. So we did it out of our responsible approach towards navigation in the Strait of Hormuz.
The hot war for global domination. Michael Yon's analysis that World War III has already begun. In a lengthy in-studio conversation broadcast on July 22nd, 2026, former Green Beret, combat journalist, and geopolitical analyst Michael Yon joined Alex Jones to argue that the world has already entered World War III. The interview frames current conflicts not as isolated regional wars, but as the opening kinetic phase of a larger contest between two major power blocks locked in a struggle for global domination. According to the discussion, the two primary opposing forces are, on one side, the Western Alliance, described as the remnants of the British Empire, now under the dominant influence of Rothschild Zionists, and on the other, Communist China, characterized as a Frankenstein creation of earlier Western policies that has grown into a peer competitor. Yon and Jones present this confrontation as already hot, encompassing simultaneous theaters of conflict rather than a future contingency. Central to the analysis is the ongoing U.S.-Iran war. The conversation situates American airstrikes, special operations deployments, threats against Iran's deep underground facilities, including the Pickaxe Mountain complex near Natanz, and disruptions to the Strait of Hormuz within a broader pattern of escalation. These actions are portrayed as one front in a multi-domain struggle that also includes the Russia-Ukraine conflict, pressure on energy systems, and cognitive or information warfare. Yon emphasizes that talk of genuine peace talks or lasting memoranda of understanding is illusory. What exists instead is a combination of standing war, ongoing kinetic operations, and process war, the longer strategic competition over resources, technology, and influence. Yon's perspective draws on his background as a war correspondent who has reported from multiple conflict zones. He argues that the public remains largely unaware of the scale because conventional media narratives treat each theater, Middle East, Eastern Europe, Indo-Pacific, as separate. In reality, he contends, these are interconnected components of a single global contest. Energy choke points, rare earth supply chains, fertilizer and food security, and the risk of famine in the global south are cited as cascading consequences already in motion. The interview stresses that 2026 is a pivotal year in which these dynamics are converging. Jones amplifies the thesis by labeling the situation official, asserting that the major power blocks are no longer in a cold or hybrid phase, but are engaged in open competition for dominance. The conversation repeatedly returns to the idea that ordinary citizens are sleepwalking through the early stages of a world historical confrontation, while elites on both sides pursue their respective long-term agendas. The interview does not claim that nuclear weapons have been used, or that every nation has formally declared war. Instead, it defines World War III by the simultaneous activation of multiple high-intensity theaters, the involvement of peer or near-peer competitors, and the systemic effects on global energy, finance, and food systems. In this framing, the absence of a single dramatic declaration is irrelevant. The war is already underway through cumulative action. Whether one accepts the specific labels, Zionist-controlled West, Frankenstein China, or the formal designation of World War III, the underlying observation remains consequential. The United States and its allies are simultaneously engaged in sustained combat operations against Iran, supporting Ukraine against Russia, and preparing for potential contingencies involving China. Michael Yon's contribution in the interview is to insist that these are not parallel crises, but facets of one interconnected struggle whose outcome will reshape the international order. The conversation ends with a call for greater public awareness. According to the participants, understanding that a hot global contest has already begun is the necessary first step toward any realistic assessment of the risks and the choices still available.
If you want to know what's really happening in the world, this is literally tomorrow's news today.
Full Michael Yon, Alex Jones interview. We break it all down.
This is explosive. You must watch the full interview. It's official. World War III has begun. Former Green Beret Michael Yon joins us live. The world's two major power blocks are now locked in a hot war for global domination. Michael, break it down.
China, or he's in Taiwan, or he's in Japan. And some of the time he lives outside Austin on Dripping Springs. But Michael Yon, the famous Green Beret and probably the most famous living combat journalist and really geopolitical expert, is here. Boy, did you call it all. On my show like 5 years ago, you would just talk about Panama and the Strait of Hormuz and Strait of Malacca and how this coming world war was going to happen. And here we are. And then you've got Saudi Arabia saying they're going to get nuke material from the U.S. And you've got Israel today set to pass in the House the NDAA Section 219 to literally merge with our military. Even military.com says, no, they're merging with us. All the secrets, everything. I mean, this is like a Twilight Zone episode. And I know you were never a Trump supporter. You were never a Democrat either. I call you a very conservative, patriotic American. But I was trying to get the good we could get out of him. But my goodness, this is a disaster. We got the Democratic Socialists running around winning all these primaries. How would you describe the moment in time we're in? And, you know, you said on my show like 2 years ago, you said, I think Israel is going to be the pariah of the world. You said, I think they're going to end up being sacrificed. You said, I think that, you know, in the end, they're going to fall. And you've been over there a bunch. And I said, really? And now they're the most unpopular country in the world. They're making villainous statements. They're going to take all the land in Lebanon and kill everybody and take all the land in Syria. And they control America. And America's doing our dirty work. And we don't have to lose anybody. They have their finance minister on TV yesterday saying that. I mean, trying to be provocative. I mean, they're not stupid, but they've gone from all these groups from denying it to just pulling their pants down in front of us and admitting it. And then you've got Russia saying they're getting ready to hit NATO countries that are massing weapons. NATO says they're ready to go to full war with Russia. We're already in a proxy war. Everything's escalating out of control. Clearly, we're in a new world war. You've said that for a while. And the average American is against the war, but they still are sleepwalking into the nearness of this and the intensity of this, because there's a normalcy bias, I think. How would you quantify, if you were a historian looking back 100 years from now, on where humanity is and your new predictions that have been so accurate in the past about where we're going? I know you can't make exact predictions, but on current trajectories, what we face, Michael Yon.
Right. I mean, this is a huge topic, as you know. We could talk about it for months, and so we'll have to triage. I think in the future we're going to see massive famines. And, you know, as you and I have talked about many times before, microphone wrong?
You're doing great.
Is that I think that the famines are partly to diminish, decrease the population, just like the death jabs, but also
you had some excellent posts on your X account detailing that. Give people your X account.
All right, my X account, or actually my Substack, as well as Michael Yon, my name, Y-O-N, and Big Honey. It's easier to remember for people, Big Honey. So there you go. And there you go. And so but I think what we're going to see is very large famines. They've been setting conditions for this for years, like the screwworms as an example. And there's so many things that they're doing to create conditions for famine, like closing Strait of Hormuz. But there's a lot more, knocking farmers off their farms all over the world, so many countries we go to. But
John Kerry said before he left 2.5 years ago, he said we need to cut half the food production or we'll starve. The Netherlands, Ireland, Sri Lanka, they're massively just saying farms are bad. They produce carbon. Not just cow farts, but literally wheat. So they're not, the governments are making people not grow food. I mean, that they admit this is about starvation.
Oh, straight out. I mean, they're really clear about it. Masako, my wife, and I just spent more than a month with Catherine Austin Fitz over in Netherlands and looking at the farmers and that sort of thing. It's happening all over the world, Ireland, wherever we go. But these famines, they will create HOP, human osmotic pressure. Human osmotic pressure, that's the push and the pull of migration. Now, keep in mind, all of those facilities down in the Darien and Colombia and everywhere else, they're all still up. The pipelines are still there, right? They're still there. They're in place. They have not been taken down. So once we get these famines coming at us, that's when that human osmotic pressure will really crank up the positive pressure, leaving those places to the negative pressure where there's food.
And you predicted this a few years ago, they'd engineer it. Now the UN, playing the good cop, admits we're about to have 50 to 80 million people just with what's happened in the Strait so far in the growing season come out of Africa, the Middle East, and others into Europe. So we're about to see an even bigger flood. Everything you said is now officially happening.
Right. It's happening, and water infrastructure is being removed. And I was just up at Lake Mead, Hoover Dam. You can see that's drying up. We see different things like this around the world. Actually,
Tigris Euphrates is drying up?
Actually, I would not be surprised if somebody destroys the Mosul Dam at some point on the Tigris. I first wrote about that in about 2005 or 2006, because I spent about a year in northern Iraq, about 2 years in Iraq. But Mosul Dam, the Greater Israel Project will take Israel up to the Euphrates, right? Now, if you look at the old maps of the Basra, Baghdad to Berlin Railroad, it goes right there by the Euphrates. That's where you would want to take. When I predicted that the Strait of Hormuz would be closed last year in July, when I predicted it and that it would be closed like it is now till my Substack. You can see what I wrote exactly.
Oh, I know you said it.
And that they would blame Iran. But really what they're trying to do is set conditions for global famine. But also every war you ever study is about three things: routes, resources, and ideology. But the ideology is about human resources. And human resources are the number one resource. But what you see, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and that trial run, and when you saw, remember when the Suez was closed with the Ever Given ship, I think that was just a trial run to see how the system would react to it.
I agree. And when we gear back up, we have the new bigger studios being built. We're going to hire extra crew. Crew's doing a great job. We need more. I'm going to have 2 other people that are just able, before I have a guest on like you. I used to have this. Hey, go get the interviews where he said X, Y, and Z, because that's what goes viral. That's what blows people away, to really have it sink home that you were the only person really detailing this. You said specifically, Greater Israel, they want chaos. They want to get us into a war. They won't fall. Then they'll use that as the excuse to close the strait. And up above Israel is BlackRock and the Rothschilds that want this global famine with the UN so they can then, again, pose as the saviors, get even more power. Then yesterday, Israel's Smotrich, their economic minister, said, and I played the video clip, but overhead shot, here's the quote. He said, this is ideal to keep the strait closed to crush Iran. They don't care about the rest of the world's economy or starvation. And they admitted this is part of the larger Greater Israel project to slowly starve the Iranians and collapse them. So they admit they are the ones that want the strait closed, and that basically Trump wants it closed, working with them. What an outrageous admission.
Right. It was obvious. I mean, I published it last year. I mean, I thought that the Zionists would want to close it. Also, the Zionists are clearly working to put China into famine. Now, if I were going to put China into famine, what would I do? I would do exactly what they're doing now. I would also close Malacca and a few other places, and I would get Argentina and Brazil into a war, and I would control the Panama Canal. I would do a few things like that, and if they could, they would take out Three Gorges Dam. A few things like that, right? Of course, the Chinese might react with, hydrogen bombs. But, but a lot of these things can be done with deniability. For instance, getting Argentina to fight Brazil, take control of the Panama Canal, which is happening now. Obviously, the United States is moving more thickly down there now, and they're really starting to elbow out the Chinese. And so these things, if you wanted to put China into famine, you would do exactly what they're doing now. You would also attack those ships in the Black Sea. You would eventually close the Turkish Straits, the Bosphorus. You would close Strait of Malacca for sure. That's why now, interestingly, about a lot of the Israelis, they're squirting out to strategic places around the world, like Panama, Argentina. They're squirting out to Thailand, and the places that they're going in Thailand are actually quite strategic, if you understand. Like, for instance, they're going to Koh Samui Island, Koh Tao, and Koh Phangan.
But what you're doing is you're like briefing an admiral or a general to the public, and they're smart, and I'm pretty informed, but I still don't follow it all. Dumb it down like I'm a 5-year-old first. Globally, what's happening, 35,000-foot view, who the players are, and then you go through these pieces. But this is a new world war. How deep are we into it? Who are the factions? Who's winning it? What can we expect? We know it's going to be bad for the average person, period.
Right. So right now they're cutting off the blood flow on the routes and resources, like gaining control of. Eventually, I think you'll see fights at, for instance, the Danish Strait. There'll end up being a war for the North Sea as well, right? Because this is about routes and resources. And human resources are the number one resource. So they're going to eliminate a lot of the human resources.
And that's why the EU and NATO are now moving nukes into those areas.
Right. And so I think that what you're going to see is places like the Turkish Strait. You're going to see Turkey in war, right? You're going to see Israel go for Egypt. They're going to try to take control of, obviously, the...
And you said that a few years ago, and they said you were anti-Semitic and crazy. Israel, including now officially says next target Turkey and Egypt. I mean, this is wild.
Right. I mean, it's been obvious the whole time that they're going to go for... That's why Israel exists. Israel even exists so that we can... The British, as you know, not to go into this long history
Rothschild set it up.
Right. And so, like, for instance, when we made Panama in 1903, we created Panama of a piece of Colombia so we could make the canal, right? There's many, many countries like that. Those 1922 synthetics is what I call the Gulf states, the Persian Gulf states, like Kuwait. Percy Cox drew all those maps.
Set up after World War I, yeah.
Right. He drew those maps and put the
drew them, they said, to create division, that they drew them unnaturally with groups that would hate each other.
That's right. And when you're down there on the ground, they're like, "Hey, you drew the border right between our tribe," and they did that all over the place. Like, for instance, in Afghanistan, between Pakistan, everywhere, right? That's the normal game. So those countries are all synthetic. And as you know, if you want, the Greater Israel includes taking most of those countries. It includes taking Jordan. It includes taking most of Syria. It includes getting rid of the people in Lebanon. And
Israel's gone from denying it to saying, "Yeah, we're doing it."
Yeah, they're going to take out their desalinization plants, I think. They're already going for the Kuwaiti desalinization.
Well, that's the thing. They knew Iran would do this, so they've put Iran in the position to do their dirty work. And I have Ben-Gvir and Smotrich on TV. I'm not going to play it again. I played it like 5 times the last few days, both admitting it. So why are they admitting it suddenly?
I think about that often, and you've talked about it many times. I think it's just straight up arrogance, and they want to show how. I think it's that base, actually. It's just that they're primitive in their minds. They're sophisticated when it comes to sabotage and that sort of thing, and causing arson basically is what they're doing. But they're actually quite primitive. You notice when they kill people, they celebrate. They jump up and down like they won a football game, right? I mean, they're actually quite savage. Smotrich he's utterly savage. And,
Gvir beats up aid workers on TV. And he was on TV, he went and showed a gas chamber, literally for gassing people, an execution chamber, and he said, "We're going to kill all of our enemies in here. I'm going to kill you." And he looks like he couldn't find his ass with both hands. That makes it even sicker. And then he's running around cheering, saying, "We're taking all of Gaza. We killed them. We killed them." And then he says, "I'm going to kill, we're going to burn all of Lebanon," and dances in Hebrew going, "Kill, kill, kill," on TV. I mean, villains in movies don't dance around saying kill, kill, kill. This is insanity.
Right. And it's actually authentic, because I've spent a lot of time with Israelis and, in India and Nepal and Thailand. And again, let me go back to Thailand. The places that a lot of the Israelis are squirting out to in Israel 2.0, or sometimes they call it Noah's Ark 2.0. They have different names for it.
Argentina.
Plan B. Yeah. Argentina, right? The places that they're going are strategic. For instance, those 3 islands I mentioned in Thailand, Koh Samui, Koh Tao, and Koh Phangan. I spent more than 3 months there, right? Those islands, they're not strategic at the moment, but in the future, when you build a canal or a crossway across the isthmus between the Gulf of Thailand and the Andaman Sea, it's going to be strategic. That's a bypass from Strait of Malacca. I first went to look at that and give it a good look in 2014.
Sure, why are they obsessed with, I heard you just a couple years ago say this, I didn't roll my eyes, but like, come on. They've gone to Mili in Argentina, and they send, for decades, all of their graduates of the military are supposed to spend like 6 months there, and they go hike there. They caught them drawing maps, setting fires, saying it's all going to be ours. And then now Israel says, no, the new Israel will be Argentina, and we're gonna take that. They're now saying that Ukraine will be an Israeli base.
Right. Now, keep in mind, Melee down in Argentina, Masako and I went down there and looked, actually, and they're hitting them with the cannabis weapon now, right? We went to an expo where the Ministry of Defense and all these guys were sponsors. It was amazing. And so, I mean, that told me right there they're coming to dumb them down, right? But that told us one thing. But Melee down there, his name, as you know, is Meliakovsky, right? That's his real name.
Same family as Netanyahu.
That's right. Meliakovsky. They changed their name in the 1920s.
Again, folks, I'm not bashing Israel to bash it. Now they are literally megalomaniac, announcing they're taking over Congress, the military, rule everything. The whole world's theirs. Ha, ha, ha. America's doing our dirty work. Ha, ha, ha. It's just bizarre.
It's right out of the movies. I mean, straight up. I mean, it's straight up evil incarnate. It's the Epstein class evil. Iran's not the one that pushed the death jab on the world. Let's be realistic about this. They're not the ones that are causing all these fights. They're just not. The Strait of Hormuz has been open the whole time, and now suddenly the Strait of Hormuz is closed, just as I predicted in writing last year. It's easy.
Rubio said again 2 days ago, we've got to keep the war going until the strait's open. Well, we're the ones that got it closed by attacking.
Right. Like you said years ago, a lot of this stuff, it feels like cheating to predict it. You just pay attention to what they say, right? You just read what they write. Pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to which way they point their eyes and point their toes, right? And so I think that the idea of global famine is coming closer and closer and getting bigger and bigger in the windshield. And at that point, again, that's when you'll see massive amounts of people flooding into Europe, as already have. I mean, in my view, I've been all over Europe. I spent more than 6 years in Europe, and I guess about 7. I've been all over Europe, right? I was just over in Sweden and all those places looking at the Baltic. But in my view, they've already had a kill shot on the so-called migration. It's already over the top. It's too many. I think at this point they will already just what they've already been hit with is enough. And it's happening to the United States as well. There's no mass deportations going on here. Furthermore, the Chinese are still coming over our border, by the way. Trump says that the border is closed. It's false. The border is still open. Chinese are still coming across our border at San Diego. So it's, it's still open.
Well, I mean, that's all depressing, but the positive thing is at least we know what is the off-ramp to get NATO to stop attacking Russia? What is the off-ramp because the mullahs themselves obviously know that if they make a deal, they'll just get bombed again later. They said, we don't trust this to ever hold. So their back's against the wall. They're going to keep the strait closed. And then that makes Israel happy because it hurts Iran, but it hurts the rest of the world. Israel brags about that. If Trump, if you were President Trump, and obviously you don't have any respect for him, you don't think he'll do the right thing, but he is being told by Laura Ingraham and Bill O'Reilly and all his confidants, hey, you look like an idiot. You're hurting the world. Everybody's turning against you. You better stop. So I think we could put enough pressure, hopefully, on him. But then how does he deal with Israel when he tells them don't attack Lebanon and they say F you?
I actually don't see an off-ramp, which is strange. I mean, it's just war. This is a war. This is a highway to war. In fact...
well, there are points of no return.
We've passed the PONA right now, point of no return, right? It's over. And I think, in my view, it's over. The point of no return, we've passed that long ago. It's game on. And I think...
that's what Tucker Carlson thinks. That's what Matt Bracken thinks. That's what everybody I talk to thinks.
Yeah, I mean...
Trump says all the military supports this, and 100% of his supporters support it with no evidence. I've found everybody I know in the military is against this.
I don't know anybody in the military that's for this.
You have more context than probably anybody. When you talk to active duty and others and former, and I mean, you know everybody for all your years of war correspondent. I mean, what are they saying?
I haven't seen anybody that's for this. I haven't seen anybody at all that's like, hey, let's go to war with Iran. They all know this is foolish. At minimum, this is foolish.
I opened the phones up, and 9 out of 10 callers that are military are against it.
The main target actually is the United States. A lot of people don't get that, right? And more globally, the globe, to reduce the population to control the remnant, right? So this is huge war. This is big boy war. That's why people that are talking about the MOU and all that nonsense and the peace talks, I'm like, listen, I don't even have time for that. There's no peace talks. It's a distraction. You're wasting my time.
Did you see that movie came out like 10 years ago? It's got the star that plays Atreides and I forget his name. He's a great actor. But it's based on Henry VIII when he's young. And he goes and beats the French, the Norman. But he finds out at the end it was all staged between the nobles because they had uprisings in France and they had uprisings in England. And of course, that was later in the histories that it came out that they would stage a lot of those wars. Real people would die, but it was really just to unify their countries when there was an uprising. This is as old as the hills. Governments to launch wars and the main target's their own people.
I think I saw you say a couple of years ago or a few years ago, you read The Prince, right, Machiavelli?
Yeah.
I mean, this is it. This is right out of The Prince, right? I mean, this is, getting the war started to keep yourself in power. I mean, this is
Episode 3 of Star Wars. Palpatine attacks his own planet to become the emperor.
Right. Kipling, what did he say in about 1901 and Kim, right? And, he talked about the great game, of course. And, he talked about, as the Russians would call it, the Tournament of Shadows. I like the way the Russians put it, the Tournament of Shadows. That's what is still going on. It never stopped. The great game is still on. And one of the things that Kipling said in Kim, he had, one of his characters say it, something like the game is so great that one sees but a small part at a time, right? And that's what's happening now. If we focus on Strait of Hormuz.
The great game is divide and conquer geopolitical interactions for people that don't know.
Manifest Destiny was part of, the great game, right? American Progress, that painting from 1872 that depicts our version of the great game. This has never ended. I mean, the great game was...
But at least with America, we were honest about it. We got a superior culture, and we're going to dominate.
Yeah, actually, it was quite honest in that regard, actually. And but the great game is on. It's wildly on. And the two main oligarchical systems out of all the Godzillas and Mothras fighting out there, are the Zionists and the Chinese, right? That's clear. And the Chinese have the advantage of numbers. The Zionists have the advantage of position, right? They're positioned well in the United States government. They've taken over us like a fungus, like those ants take the fungus.
And I want you to take your time on this because I see this on X and rumbling everywhere. A big minority of the listeners only care about Israel. It's all they understand. It's all they know. So we're pattern recognition. They think if I ever talk about China being a threat, they think I'm taking away from Israel. They don't understand that the globalists are double dealing. BlackRock with China, Bill Gates with China. Israel's selling them our secrets, but Israel's not with the Chinese. They've got the people in position. They've got AIPAC. They've got the corporate positions. But when Trump comes out and criticizes China and election fraud, NBC and ABC, they don't run it because at the same time, their main enemy is still keeping the American people in the dark, controlling us. So you're a world traveler, you're highly respected, combat, everything. You've lived over in Asia for a long time. Explain to them that you can have multiple predatory power structures and that you can be concerned about each one and it doesn't take away from the others. Why don't you spend some time, I agree, on the two, because the Zionist model has people in the EU, the U.S., Canada, New Zealand, other parts, corporations, double dealing with China. When it comes to people in key positions, they're the key. They have the money through the central banking. The Chinese have the rare earth minerals, the most people. They're spread out, and they've also infiltrated the West with their spies. But who would you say is superior in a position of power right now?
That's actually difficult to say because you know how fights get. Fights take twists and turns that are unexpected. They both have huge advantages and huge vulnerabilities. The Chinese, now I've written 3 books on Chinese information war and the Chinese aggressions. I spent a lot of time, and I spent more than 20 years in Asia. A lot of that time was in China. And
all right, stay there. We're going to come back. We'll spend as much time as we got a lot of time. We're like 45 minutes left or longer. I want you to get into all of this and understand who the power players are. We'll be right back with you. There is a massive sale going on right now at thealexjonesstore.com. Huge. Ultimate summer sale. 50% off Ultimate Power, Freedom Mango, and Patriot Punch. Methylene Red capsules. This is a proprietary product. It would take an hour to get into Ultra Methylene Red. The capsules are now in. Mind-fueled nootropic energy shots. All 50% off. 40% off Zeolite tincture. Detoxify and go up for spike protein. And it's good for your whole body, getting heavy metals out. Methylene Blue tincture. 40% off. CMOS gummies. 40% off. Shilajit gummies, 40% off. Methylene Blue gummies, 40% off. Ultimate Chill, and a whole bunch of other big discounts as well. 30% off all apparel. The widest selection of Patriot shirts of every different design, configuration. It is the widest selection. It's over 800 different shirts. It's ridiculous. The new line that I designed is, I think, pretty good. Rebel Scum since 1776. The Betsy Ross flag, less 1984, more 1776. In muscle shirts. Whole bunch of other really cool stuff now at thealexjonesstore.com. I love this lightweight so-called dress shirt, but it's a very special type of shirt from a great manufacturer. We now have the boxer shorts, and they're not boxer like underwear. You know, the classic boxer shorts that aren't long and aren't short. They're just kind of medium. They're my favorite type. I picked these out. I picked the brand. I said, this is the type of short I like. We're adding a lot of new apparel at thealexjonesstore.com. And every order right now, and it's about to end in the next few days, gets a free mystery T-shirt. You just put your size in, you get a free mystery T-shirt with every order that's $29 or more at thealexjonesstore.com. That is a hell of a deal right now. We've got the Silver Collectible 250-year anniversary with the amazing Jerusalem Cross. Those are going to be gone soon. TheAlexJonesStore.com. And you stand with us, and you know that all the great work we're doing is because of you. You are the reason we're here. You are the InfoWar. TheAlexJonesStore.com. All right, you're talking to a lot of people connected to the Pentagon during the breaks about what's happening in Mali. Trump wants to hit that next. We'll get to that coming up. This is a short segment. We'll take it in the next segment. Explain China, and then explain the Zionist lobby, because you can talk about the EU or Russia, or you can talk about the U.S., but really it's the mega bank Rothschild, what's left of the British Empire, basically controlled by Zionists now. They even admit that. You have that global order that the Zionists are dominant in, have almost complete control of with their billionaires. And then you've got the China model that was working with the globalists but broke away in the last 18 years. They're now at loggerheads with each other, but there's still some overlapping infiltration on both sides. Is that accurate?
Oh, definitely. The Chinese are growing, and they're very sophisticated people. I've spent more than 20 years in Asia. A lot of that time was in China. roughly a year between China and their neighbors like Tibet, that sort of thing. But I've written 3 books on Chinese information war and the things that they're doing. In fact, you may have seen recently the Chinese park was taken down by a local mayor there in Panama. The Chinese park on the Panama Canal, the Chinese ambassador got involved, and we were right in the middle of that. But the Chinese, they have been fighting for years they're going to go for Japan. That's clear. I've never studied a war that did not actually radiate information in advance. They always radiate. If you know where to look, like I go to museums all over China and that sort of thing, if you pay attention to what they'll tell you, they're going to war. There's
always a preparatory narrative,
and they radiate. I mean, they're loud. The wars they never.
Well, that's because China's been trying to take Japan for 800 years. They got a hard on for it,
right? And so when you go to their museums, like at Nanjing and places like that, that's a huge museum. And I've written about the Nanjing Museum quite extensively. And actually, interesting. Speaking of Nanjing, the sister city of Nanjing, China, is Panama City, Panama. Weirdly, unless you really understand some details behind that. But I'll skip that that could take an hour. But at the end of the day, China is going to go. You know, Doug McGregor doesn't. You know, he wrote me the other day. He thinks I'm completely wrong on this stuff, and he thinks I want to go to war with China. I don't. They're at war with us. They're going to go for Lu Chu.
Well, their top generals are on TV constantly saying it.
Right, they're going to go. Oh,
I know. There's an extreme end of this to be anti-war, when you say that China isn't a threat. I see that, and it's very weird.
Right, like they're going to go for Lu Chu, which is Ryukyu. You know, the Okinawa. They're going to go for Okinawa. They're clearly going to go for it. And
they're taking islands from the Vietnamese, and they're taking them from the Philippines. They're just swinging their dicks around.
Right, and you can see if you're going to take Taiwan, then you have to go for Okinawa. That's a package deal, right? And so, again, I could go for hours about that, but they're clearly going to go for Okinawa, despite whatever somebody might
Well, just
think.
back to McGregor. I like McGregor, but at the same time, I mean, I'll just be point blank. In general, total knowledge, you have way more from all your experience. He doesn't know. Every day, I want to attack China, I could. They have their top generals, their top economic people on their national TV saying, we're funding Hollywood to dumb them down to make them fight. America's done. We're infiltrating them to overthrow them. We've got all the rare earth minerals. We're encircling everything. We've bought off their people. Our Confucian centers, they're done. They're going to collapse in race riots. We're surging across the planet. We're building all our. I mean, they literally declare they're at war with us officially. And then is McGregor hiding under a rock?
That's what I told him. I said, come over. I'll take you over there. I mean, they're not going to let me back in China because they kicked me out of Hong Kong. But, they would. I can show him the clear evidence that China's going to go first.
What was that like? They came and said, get out, or what happened in Hong Kong?
Oh, I came back in. I'd left because of there was a lot of fighting going on. In 2019, I spent most of the year there in those big, huge protests and whatnot. And I left for a short spell and came back, and then they actually denied me entry. So it was in the news, actually, when they denied me entry to come back.
I saw that. That's right.
Right. So it's not like they handcuffed me.
You're a busy beaver.
Yeah, but they kicked me out. But I've been paying attention to China for a long time. That's why I was there to begin with, right? Now they've taken Hong Kong. Hong Kong is very important. They've got a very important port there and quite a few other things. So they've taken.
Well, it's like when you're in Darien Gap. It's all Chinese run, Chinese sponsoring the UN. It's Chinese.
A lot of it is. I hear music coming on you.
Yeah, 60 seconds. Got to join some stations. Some stations don't carry the first 5. So come back with China and Israel. How do Americans get organized and say, we're not with Israel, we're not with China? How do we get a lobby, like with the NRA for guns? How do we get a lobby to get back control of our destiny?
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
All right, if you want tomorrow's news today, you're getting it. Michael Young, you're really on fire as usual. You're moving around the whole battle space around the world. The power blocks that you were explaining, you've got the Zionists that took over the British Empire that are the dominant force. They even admit it now. They're saying Israel is going to rule the world through America. They're trying to pass right now in the House today, and they say they've got the votes. Israel to merge our military. What you get to that? Then you got China as its own predatory power block that was allied with the globalists but double-crossed them the last 17 years. Finishing up with that and then just looking at where this is going to go now, you say no off-ramps. I talked to so many other people that are almost at your level or at your level, not many, and they say, yeah, they don't see any turning this back now. And Tucker came out yesterday and said, Trump, for all his purposes, is running nothing, so we should just stop talking about him.
Right. I mean, that's why Trump is a nothing. He's just.
You said that a month ago on my show. That's why I was like, oh yeah.
Right. I mean, he's just what he is. Right. And but he's just an actor. I call him the condom. Right. I mean, that's what he is. Right. He'll be disposed of at some point, and then there'll be another one. Right. Because this is not about Trump. Trump is just a leaf on the tree. This is about a huge war that's been going on for centuries. It's not going to stop now. Actually, there's a standing war in the Middle East, like a standing wave. There's always going to be a war for those routes and resources. We're the same bears fighting over the same caves and the same rivers, right? It's going to continue. That's a standing war. And then there's a process war going on right over the top of it. That's the great game. So people are always going to fight over those routes and resources, like Panama. There's been conflict in Panama ever since Europeans arrived.
But it's coming to a crescendo right now in these cycles.
Yeah, they have occasional crescendos, and this is one of them. And it's game on, and it's really big, and it's global, and like it's never been before. And there's different parties that want to do different things. Some parties want to depopulate the earth. Other parties are not even paying attention to it. And I think it's going to surprise them when it finally happens. And then there's parties that, like China, just wants to rule the world and make the world Chinese. They're very clear about it. They want to make the world genetically Chinese. They're super clear about that. Right. And then we've got the Zionists that would like to wipe us out. Obviously, they're super clear about it. They don't hide it. They brag about it.
They say, Netanyahu says, you destroyed our temple in 70 A.D. America and Europe is Rome, and you're going to get it.
They call us Romans. I mean, he says that occasionally, right? I mean, we are the Romans to them. And so this is for them, it's new in their minds. Professional
victims. That's key to explain. It doesn't mean, it's like the Soprano guy. He goes, where are the Romans? He goes, what the hell you think you're looking at? You don't have to be Italian background, folks. We're all seen as Romans by the Israel lobby.
Right, and professional victims are always predators. And you'll see the CCP as well. The Chinese Communist Party is a professional victim. Constantly, everything they do is about we're the victim, and that gives them the right to do anything they want. When you talk with gypsies about why do you think it's okay to steal from everybody, they say because when Christ was crucified, that a gypsy tinkerer took the fourth nail. That's why there's three nails in Christ instead of four, right? And they say, since we took that fourth nail for whatever reason, that gives us the right to steal from anybody in the world, right? Just ask a gypsy, right? I mean, that's very clear, right? But they're constant victims. And so they don't mind stealing from people, right? I've talked with many gypsies around the world. They'll tell you when you can get them alone, not with their group. If they're
who says gypsies are good? Liberal Americans have never been around them. I mean, they don't understand that they 100% is their culture to rob you.
Straight up. I mean, they don't hide it. I mean, I've taken Misako, my wife, to different places like bridges, and I would go to bridges like London Bridge in London, you know what I mean? Or the old, some of the bridges there anyway, and watching how they work the bridges, right? I just show her how they work. Let's just sit back, have tea, and watch how they work the people, right? I see these things. Have you ever heard of the Thugis, the thugs?
Yeah, the thugs out of India.
Right. And I think that those sorts of cultures are actually much more common than people think, right? The Thugis, that's where the name thug came from. They're also called the deceivers or the stranglers, with their yellow scarves and that sort of thing. But those guys, I think, are still there, actually. But the British, did a big war against them in the 1800s. I've got quite a few books from that period, from the British commander and that sort of thing. But I mean, they went to war with those thugs. But what the thugs would do is very similar to what we see now, but on a big scale and more sophisticated. The thugs now run places like Epstein Island, and they got G5s and that sort of thing. They're running around. They own airports and they own ports, right? They're much bigger. They're just more sophisticated, but they're still doing the same thing. The deceivers, the thugs, they look down upon everybody. They don't have any rules. By the way, I've talked to you about those cannibals I've hunted before. It's not that I was hunting cannibals. I was studying cults for about 3.5 years. And I studied that cannibal cult as a subset of studying cults.
That was in India.
That was in India, Nepal, California, Hawaii, mostly India, right? It was in Italy as well.
By the way, it's come out that Epstein was in a cannibal cult.
I could believe it. But the way that the cult is called Agor, and they seem to be descended from another cult called Kapalikas. Anyway, not to go into that. But the point is, when you look at the way that the Agors believe, it's very similar to the way some of these hardcore core Zionists like the Epstein class, the way that they believe. For instance, that there are no rules. You have no rules whatsoever except the laws of physics, right? So you can do anything that you want, and the more bad things that you do, the more power you accrue.
Well, the final phase of Kabbalah, which is, you can go buy Kabbalah at the bookstore, official, is descending into the devil and transcending through Satan to become a more powerful person.
That's what they do. I mean, these cannibals that I track, I have many, many photos drinking out of skulls, photos that I took, right? They always drink with their left hand with a skull with their 3 fingers, and human skulls, I mean, right? And they have horns, the human femur horns, and that, and damaru drums, dung, 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 those things that you see, you know, those are made out of baby skulls and baby skin, right? Those people, when you look at their belief system...
Well, the Thuggees sacrifice people to God.
Yeah, the Thuggees were a different cult, right? And actually, the Thuggees, they worship Shiva, but actually, believe it or not, a lot of them were Muslim, even though they worship Shiva. But anyway, you know how religions...
It's all mixed, yeah.
And they're syncretic. But the Thuggees were something else. I truly think that they still exist. Not to go into that. But the Aghoris, they're very similar to the Epstein class of Zionists. That they can do anything that they want. In fact, the more evil that you do, the more powerful that you become. And they reach a sort of ecstasy in doing this, right? They think that they'll... and
that's how I would describe how Israel's ministers, Gavir and Smor, they're acting like they're higher than kites right now.
Right. They celebrate the genocide. They're high. They literally are high. And you see that the Aghoris, they believe that they'll achieve something called moksha, which is more of a general idea in Hinduism, that, just total release, right? You have, basically, let the...
Well, that's what Kabbalah says in the last phase, is that you get into the pure evil and have it possess you, and that transcends it all by embracing the dark side.
That's it. And these Aghoris that I track, many of them just wear black. They wear black quite a lot. I've got thousands of photos of these guys that I made. And I've got probably close to 1,000 hours of video and audio of interviewing these people. I know what they're thinking and believing based on, insofar as what they told me and what I would see them do. They are very similar to the Epstein class, except they got the jets.
Well, when you talk about India, and I'm not bashing Indians in general, but 80% of the special visas are from India, and over 70% are from one little region. And then once they get in, they're very nice till they get in a position of power. Then they fire all the other people, black, white, doesn't matter, Asian, and they bring in only Indians. And I had Mark Mitchell on, who's run Fortune 500 companies, and he said, Walmart, he was a high-level executive there, vice president, and he said at the end, they just fired all the white people, and it's all Indians. And so the thing is, we don't get it. They're tribal, even to their own groups. They don't even let other Indians in. It's like special tribes and I watch Indian leaders on TV going, we now control Google. We now control Apple. We now control IBM. We now control Walmart. And they say it at the speeches there.
Right. These are vines trying to control, who gets the most sunlight. They're competing vines.
Well, they know. You come in as an Indian, and another Indian above you will promote you. You promote others, and then they all just do that.
Right. There's quite a lot of cultures that do this. In fact, it's pretty rare to see a United States.
Well, that's what Jews in general do, is they promote within themselves.
Right. There's many cultures that do this. And the United States seems to be one of the few that's ever existed where we try to make
meritocracy.
Right.
Admiral Nimitz became the head of the Navy and head of the Pacific Fleet in World War II. He was landlocked and grew up in a hotel that his dad, who'd been a naval officer, built the hotel like a ship. It's in Fredericksburg outside Austin. He went and joined the Navy as a young man, did great, became the head guy because of meritocracy.
Right. That's one of the things that makes America incredible. Absolutely incredible. One of the best.
Before in England, it was families of lords, and if you weren't from the officer class, you were never going to be an officer.
You didn't have the right accent. We are incredibly lucky we were born in the United States. At the time that we were born in. And now it's our turn. If we don't defend this place, it's over. It's down to that.
That's the thing. The West ended slavery. When you get into this, I won't get into the big picture of the war, but we've been the true liberals, Thomas Jefferson-wise, not modern liberal.
Right.
We've been the women freedom in all this stuff. But somehow they turned it around like we're the bad guys.
It's easy to weaponize that, as you know. You've talked about this many times. You can weaponize that against us so easily, and the evil people do that, right?
Well, if you look at the Georgetown colonies and the ones that survived and failed, you're a historian, you know this. As soon as the Pilgrims showed up and a bunch of the first settlements failed, the natives would say, you help us kill our neighbor or we're going to kill you. So and I'm not against Native Americans, which is the way it was. They were always saying, you work with us to kill the other tribe or you're dead. They would never unify. So Manifest Destiny that's how they were, so that's the way it happened.
right? I mean, studying the history of the United States is actually, I spend a lot of time doing this. I know you have because I've watched you talk so much. I mean, this is an incredible story of the United States and how we formed. My family came over in 1609 and got shipwrecked on Bermuda. And there was a book about it called The Sea Venture. But yeah, that was a company town, Jamestown. They made it to Jamestown in 1610 and started fighting the Powhatan Indians and been going at it ever since. But that was my eastern side. But the thing is the United States is an experiment that people are using against us now. It's been a beautiful. How far we've gotten is amazing.
They're now using our openness against us.
They are. Our better traits are being used against us. Like, Americans are the most generous people I've ever seen. They're unbelievably generous. They're not the only generous ones. I've seen others as well. Like, Thai people are very generous, actually. Japanese are very generous as well. But I've never seen somebody quite as generous as Americans. It's really over the top, where American spirit will just come out and go, we got to go help those people. Why? Because we're supposed to go help them. That's what we're going to do. We're just one of the things about the missionaries, by the way, I've studied missionary actions quite a lot over the world.
Well, they were always the vanguard of America.
And, I was with a senior CIA guy one time at his home many years ago, and he said, if you really want to know what's going on, you go to the real CIA, the Christians in action, the missionaries. They know what's going on. And it's true. And, interestingly,
as missionaries started Texas.
Did they start here?
No, missionaries didn't start. I'm saying missionaries were sent in by Jackson 10 years before to set the whole thing up.
I was going to say, I know missionary, like the Jesuits were 1500s.
I'm saying missionaries kicked off the Texas Revolution.
Oh, on a side topic, Gary the Cannibal, his super ultra great grandfather was the first, I think, Methodist preacher in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, he actually has a book. I found it. But anyway, but not to go into that. But when it comes to missionaries, by the way, missionaries, wherever they go, whether it be Formosa or wherever, they're always fighting the government or people from throwing opium or alcohol or whatever on the natives. Constantly, like, stop. They have always been throwing up the shield, right? Whereas others, like the Chinese, they always play victim on the opium thing. But the Chinese spread that opium all over the place, like Siam, Thailand, and Siam and Thailand, and they've always been pushing the opium down in Thailand, right? They've always, and the Chinese push the dope on people like crazy, and then play the victim of the British opium wars, right? Which they were victims, but they also spend a lot of time victimizing others. One missionary that was in Formosa in the 1800s, his name is McKay. He was a Canadian dentist, right? And he was talking about how this is his quote, the wily Chinese traders are pushing intoxicants on the natives. These were headhunters he's out with, like, no kidding, cannibal headhunters. He said they're actually, I'm talking about the missionary McKay, the dentist.
No, and we could talk for 50 hours. It's all fascinating. But back to the Chi-Coms and then the Zionist with its international networks in the West and this big battle. Where do you see it going? What's the next shoe to drop? What's going to happen with no off-ramp? Trump's like, 19 years, Vietnam War was really 11, as you know, but this is just, and even Bill O'Reilly's like saying, you got to take a rest. Laura Ingram's saying, man, you're destroying us. And Trump is just destroying himself, destroying America. You can say he was bad before, I get that, but he is like really gone to seed.
I think when he's gone, it'll continue. Because any minute now he may keel over or whatever. But in any case, when he's gone, I think it'll continue. That's my view, because I'm looking at the larger energy in the system. And in that larger energy in the system, that's why he's even there, right? He's not there because he won organically. He's there because he's part of that system, right? That's it. Just like Obama was, just like Bush was, just like the Clintons.
So who's winning this global war between the BRICS and the Chi-Coms and the Anglo-American Zionist British Empire system?
Ultimately, fascism, actually. Ultimately, that's it.
Exactly. AI, tyranny in general, they're all adopting it. It's just bad for people.
Yeah, ultimately, fascism. As government.
So the devil's winning.
Right. Ultimately, like, for instance, when we were just up at the Danish Strait in Denmark, the Danish Strait's one of the top, one of the main chokeholds in the world, right? It's very important. So Masako and I were up there. There's a United Nations headquarters right on the Danish Strait, right there, and in Copenhagen, right? It's amazing. It's huge. It's like it's bigger than the headquarters in Panama, right beside the Panama Canal, UN, right? And so the Danish Strait, Maersk, huge shipping company, right? Massive shipping company, which is going for, obviously, they're part of Panama, right? A lot of, China owns Costco, their shipping company, right? Or a shipping company. But Maersk basically owns, Denmark. I mean, it's already a fascist country, right? I would not be surprised at some point to see somebody attack Denmark and go for Maersk and all of their ships, actually. That's one of the reasons I've never seen anybody say this or write it or speak it out loud like I just did. But I think at some point, somebody's going to go for the company of Maersk and all of their ships. As you know, in the old days, people would go beat somebody up and take all of their ships, take all of their ports.
Well, that's why the Dutch had the night watch, because pirates coming in. So expanding on that, let's move to Russia and the Ukraine thing. Russia says the red lines crossed, are going to hit NATO bases, massing weapons because NATO's hitting Russia. Do you think the Russians will make good on that, and what do you think NATO does if they do?
I think that they probably will. And that's why Masako and I were recently up in Hamburg, because Hamburg is the third biggest port in Germany or in Europe.
So your predictions rarely don't come true. You think Russia will start hitting NATO countries soon?
I think so.
Okay, what time frame, and what happens after that?
I don't know, because wars have this way of getting out of control really quick. It's already out of control. This what's happening now is a function of an out-of-control war. Because, wars do certain things very predictably. The Nostradamus of war.
They do predictably is grow once you start them.
There you go. If you want to sound like Nostradamus in war prediction, just say, I think this war is going to grow, right? And it does magically, because that's what fires and wars do. And I think this war is going to grow unpredictably, and they do, because that's what they do. It's going to last longer than anybody expected, right? They generally last longer than anybody expected, and the outcome is often different than anybody expected, right? So, I mean, right now we're in the stage of a wildfire, right? There's a huge fuel load, and the winds come and go, the weather changes. I mean, which way is the fire going to go? You could have fought fires for 40 years, and you're like, I don't know.
Which it goes back to mutually assured destruction. Yeah. The smart move would have not have done this, but now it's been kicked off.
It's game on. So, I mean, there's the war has, once you reach this stage of a war, it's like a beast being born. It has its own life.
That's what Nixon famously said when he was at the Lincoln Memorial, and in his actual video that's in the movie Nixon. And he's like, I want to stop the war, but he goes, there's all these interests. He goes, you can't stop it. He goes, no, it's a wild animal.
Did Nixon say that?
And he said, yeah, it's a wild beast.
And he totally gets it. At some point,
guys, pull up. Yeah. They had it last week. I played it. Just type in Oliver Stone's Nixon.
Look at those
Nixon at the Lincoln Memorial. Nixon says it's a wild animal.
Can they remember that map?
When we come back, we'll show that map when we come back. Crew's doing a great job here in our backup studio. Our new ones are getting ready. That's why you got to support us. TheAlexJonesStore.com, folks. There is a massive sale going on right now at TheAlexJonesStore.com. Huge. Ultimate summer sale. 50% off Ultimate Power, Freedom, Mango, and Patriot Punch. Methylene Red capsules. This is a proprietary product. It would take an hour to get into Ultra Methylene Red. The capsules are now in. Mind-fueled nootropic energy shots, all 50% off. 40% off Zeolite tincture, detoxifying, go up to spike protein, and it's good for your whole body, getting heavy metals out. Methylene Blue tincture, 40% off. CMOS gummies, 40% off. Shilajit gummies, 40% off. Methylene Blue gummies, 40% off. Ultimate Chill, and a whole bunch of other big discounts as well. 30% off all apparel. The widest selection of Patriot shirts of every different design, configuration. It is the widest selection. It's over 800 different shirts. It's ridiculous. The new line that I designed is, I think, pretty good. Rebel Scum since 1776. The Betsy Ross flag, less 1984, more 1776 in muscle shirts. A whole bunch of other really cool stuff now at TheAlexJonesStore.com. I love this lightweight so-called dress shirt, but it's a very special type of shirt from a great manufacturer. We now have the boxer shorts, and they're not boxer like underwear. The classic boxer shorts that aren't long and aren't short. They're just kind of medium. They're my favorite type. I picked these out. I picked the brand. I said, this is the type of short I like. We're adding a lot of new apparel at TheAlexJonesStore.com. And every order right now, and it's about to end in the next few days, gets a free mystery T-shirt. You just put your size in, you get a free mystery T-shirt with every order that's $29 or more at TheAlexJonesStore.com. That is a hell of a deal right now. We've got the Silver Collectible 250-year anniversary with the amazing Jerusalem Cross. Those are going to be gone soon. TheAlexJonesStore.com. And you stand with us, and you know that all the great work we're doing is because of you. You are the reason we're here. You are the InfoWar. TheAlexJonesStore.com.
Okay, Bob, we're just wrapping my friends and I. In fact, we agree on a lot of things, don't we?
No, we don't. You say you want to end the war, so why don't you?
Change always comes slowly. I pulled out more than half the troops. I'm trying to cut the military budget for the first time in 30 years. I want a volunteer army, but it's also a question of American credibility, our position in the world.
Come on, Mr. Nixon. It's a civil war between Vietnamese.
You don't want the war. We don't want the war. The Vietnamese don't want the war. So why does it go on?
We should be going, Mr. President. Okay. Please.
You can't stop it, can you? Even if you wanted to. Because it's not you. It's the system. The system won't let you stop it.
There's more at stake here. What you want or what I want.
Then what's the point? What's the point of being president? You're powerless.
No, I'm not powerless. Because I understand the system. I believe I can control it. Maybe not control it totally, but tame it enough to make it do some good.
Sounds like you're talking about a wild animal.
Nixon said, I am. Full club. Michael Yon, continuing then, and you're giving a lot of details, that's excellent, but what can we do with the players, okay, with the Chi-Com globalist battle going on with Ukraine, Russia, and Iran as proxy hybrid areas? Who's winning this conflict? I guess you said the tyrants are getting more control. The domestic population is the real target. I agree with that. Israel admitted that yesterday, their finance minister. So how do we educate the public? What does the public do?
Whatever position people are in, don't go along with the plan. Sometimes that
I've got 3 children that are draft age, and they've got the draft set back up and ready. I'm not doing it.
I think that they're going to do a draft. I think they're going to do a draft, and they're going to kill them off. That's the plan, and then replace them with others, right? Like Haitians or whatever.
COVID 2.0.
Right. I think that they'll do it. And actually, can you put up that map of the North Sea with NATO countries?
Yeah, we were showing the last since '91 the expansion of NATO.
Right. You see NATO there. Notice the North Sea there, which is just south of Norway and just east of United Kingdom and over there, right by Germany and Netherlands. Right. That's the North Sea. Right. The North Sea is surrounded by NATO countries, and that's not a coincidence.
And guys, run through the graphic. Run up to the year 2026. Go ahead.
Right. I think that when you talked about what would Russia do, I think that North Sea is obviously one of the most important places on Earth. It's incredibly important. It's resource rich, and it's been a place that people have fought over for nobody knows how long, right? And it's filled with energy. It's filled with food. It's a huge route, right? So you notice Denmark right there right by Norway, south of Norway. There's Denmark. There's the Danish Strait. I think Russia may do something to Denmark. If they don't, then the Zionists may and blame it on Russia. Again, like BASF plant in Ludwigshafen, Germany. I would not be surprised if somebody takes that out. Whoever takes it out, it'll probably get blamed on Russia. But Russia might take it out, actually. But I think places like Hamburg and Rotterdam and Antwerp are all on the menu.
Well, Russia has said they're on the menu.
Did he say Antwerp and Rotterdam as well?
They've specifically said all these targets, anywhere that's supporting Ukraine.
Right. I mean, if you wanted to really cripple Europe, you would take out places like, Hamburg, Rotterdam, Antwerp. You would take out BASF plants.
But to show how the target's not just Russia, look how they blew up the Nord Stream. That hurt Germany worse than anybody.
Right. And, when they took out Nord Stream, Misako and I were at BASF 14 days in advance before that, warning about it.
That's where they make the fertilizer.
That's right. That's where they started making the Haber-Bosch process. First started there on an industrial scale in 1914, arguably 1913. But that's why we were there, because that's the biggest chemical company in the world.
And none of that's sexy, folks. But you cut off fertilizer by blowing up a plant or cutting it off physically. You cut off energy. That's true war. Is siege.
Keep in mind, BASF is not just about fertilizer. It's also about thousands of other chemicals that are needed for the world that we live in, right? They make a huge amount. We did a tour of the plant, actually. And this was 14 days before Nord Stream.
Did you see where the EU wants to ban that process of making hydrogen or turning it into fertilizer?
They want to ban the Haber-Bosch process?
Yeah.
That's over the top. Yeah. When did they propose this?
A couple years ago, John Kerry and them were pushing how it's bad. You know, they were trying to get Europe to go after that.
Wow, I didn't. So it's been out for a couple of years, and I didn't notice. That's amazing. You know, Fritz Haber, by the way, he was a German chemist. He first came up with the idea in about 1903 in his book on thermodynamics. Anyway, later he worked on the same on the gases that were used to gas Jews. Right. The same. He's Jewish, by the way. So I mean, the actual guy that worked on those gases was Fritz Haber, right? And so he's a famous chemist. I've got quite a bit of. There's a good book on him, actually.
There he is.
That's him, Fritz. So he's the guy that first envisioned being able to do the Haber-Bosch process, taking the nitrogen off of the natural gas. I'm sorry, the hydrogen, and combining it with the nitrogen that we're breathing now, and making ammonia, right? But then later he made the actual chemicals that were used in chemical warfare. So that's the guy, Fritz Haber. But actually Bosch, another German chemist, is the one that was able to do it on an industrial scale. So that's why it's called the Haber-Bosch, is based on those two.
Yeah, and another great factoid, but just picking up in other areas, what do you make of the elites funding communism? People think the universities are anti-establishment. That's establishment funding it. What do you make of the Democratic Socialists of America, Mondami, the Red-Green Alliance? How does Islam play into this larger global panopticon?
They're being used as useful idiots to destroy us. That's what's happening. I mean, straight up. I mean, for instance, you look at HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society.
Oh, my God. I could play thousands of rabbis saying we hate the Muslims less than we hate Rome, which is the West. We're going to use the Muslims to get them.
They're crystal clear. Like they're taking people from Somalia and putting them in Minnesota, right? So they're taking it from a target area to a target area, right? Because Minnesota, the headwaters of Mississippi and all that stuff, right? I mean, they're actually, new.
You understand? It's all warfare. Once you shift your mind into the Chinese or the Zionists, it's all war.
Can you pull up New Somaliland on a map?
Oh, they're now teaching in schools that the Somalis founded Minnesota 3,000 years ago.
There you go. That's how it goes, right? And the Chinese are teaching the Chinese that they created the United States and they were the first here, right? They're teaching them that they were the first in the United States and that they made all these roads and railroads, and they're teaching them that, right? So
I've seen this weird new thing that courthouses are thousands of years old, built by Chinese. The flat earthers believe that. They believe that we can't build anything.
They believe Taiwan was part of China. In fact, I'll bet you 99% of the educated people watching this think Taiwan was part of China.
But there's Somaliland in Somalia. They're now announcing Somaliland in Minnesota. Somalis announced that they even have their own political party.
Somaliland, actually, though, is right. Notice where it's at. Right there. Right next to Djibouti. Right next to Djibouti. Right there. Right? So there you go. And so that's Somaliland will be part of the new Israel project. It is part of it, right? So that's why they just created. Israel's the only country that's actually recognized Somaliland. They did it a few months ago. So they're
so they're already breaking that. I was out of the Mediterranean's over there, but I meant like just controlling that whole area.
Right. And so Djibouti is obviously, eventually they'll go for Djibouti, clearly.
They have a Somaliland elections in Minnesota, and the leader of Somaliland lives in Minnesota.
If you look at the Somalis in Minnesota, you'll see HIAS openly supporting them. HIAS is openly like, we're helping them with this.
That's the Jewish charity.
Right. HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society.
Mayorkas used to run.
That's right. He was a board member. And then he left HIAS and he became Department of Homeland Security chief. If you go to HIAS.org, you'll see a letter congratulating Mayorkas.
Oh, I know. So we've gone over. So what do we do? Okay. Guys, in fact, check. They were supposed to vote like now. Just check for me. Section 219 of the Defense Authorization Act was Section 224. I'm sure you've seen it. Even Army Times, all of it admit. No, it integrates us with the Israelis. They get co-ownership of all of our weapons. Literal coup d'etat treason. And they say they have the votes to get it out of the House today. How do we respond to that?
It's a big deal. I think they're going to do a draft, and I think they're going to try to kill off all the, young patriots. I think that's a pretty obvious step, actually. And so what can we do to resist things like this? First of all, don't go along with anything. Don't go along with anything that is treasonous.
And then again, here's military.com. U.S.-Israeli defense integration on horizon as House keeps Section 219 and NDAA set to vote today. I mean, this is the mainline news that we're merging. Sorry, go ahead. I mean, it's just crazy.
Right, so they'll want to make war slaves out of people because that's what the draft actually is, war slavery, obviously. Look at Vietnam. You just had, Nixon up there. Right. What's that?
Equivalent of Hessians.
Right. I mean, this is straight up war slavery. And so they want to force people into the draft. Of course, they're going to force people into the draft that they want to kill off. Look what's happening to the Ukrainians. They're dragging them off the streets and putting them up.
But Europe's bringing back the draft. People aren't going to go along with that. So what's going to happen?
We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see how much testosterone they've actually got, because that's what it's going to come down to, right? Look at look what's happening in Ireland right now. I mean, we've warned about Ireland so many times, and now the African gangs are out there stabbing people on the streets, like openly, right? It's gang warfare now.
Chopping heads off.
Right. So, I mean, it comes down to, what are the Irish men going to do? Are you going to man up, or are you going to just go, no, you can have it? I mean, that's what it comes down to Texas, too. Now, you ask what we can do. I've been across the entire U.S. southern border from SpaceX over to San Diego, right? Took a long time to do that. I talked with a lot of Border Patrol who were loading the buses up, and they would blame it on the Mexican cartels. I'm like, are you in the Mexican cartel? I mean, you're the one loading the bus to invade the United States.
No, I've done that myself. When they're loading them, they're like, and they go, no, we're completing the smuggling process.
You've been down on the border. You've seen it. I don't need to explain. You've been to the camps and stuff. I mean, you know exactly what's happening. They're loading up. They're like, no, it's a Mexican cartel. Did they actually say that to you? We're a Mexican cartel?
No, they've had the Border Patrol union had say, no, we complete the smuggling process. We don't want to do it. And I've had them say, nope. You're like, yeah, we got video. They go, yep, you're right. We're told to do it. Yep, you're right. We are.
So it says we don't want to do it, but we're still there. You are. Yeah, I remember watching that video. Yeah, I shared it with quite a lot of people.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
that I was.
Yeah. Well, you're not now. I mean, it was just amazing.
I did 500 sit-ups this morning. That was fun.
You did 500 sit-ups this morning?
500, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, your energy's high.
Well, my enemies want to defeat me, so I'm my biggest enemy. I got to stop being the enemy around here.
That's right.
You lost a bunch of weight, too.
Yeah, I'm about to do a fast because we're going to have a baby soon, and baby can never see me fat. So, my grandfather used to smoke, actually, before my mother and uncle were born, and he stopped smoking because he said, never going to let.
How old's your Japanese wife?
36.
Wow, so you still got it in you.
Yeah.
Michael Yon ain't shooting blanks.
No, sir. Catherine Austin Fitz asked us in December what you're going to do in 2026. I said, we're going to make a family. And on that note, good night, Catherine. And so the baby was actually conceived in Stavoren, Netherlands. And then we went right to Hamburg, right, actually. But Stavoren is actually, in the old days, was a main port for the in the Hanseatic days, anyway.
Is this your first child or you got more kids?
First.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
But I wish I had like 20 because I've always loved kids.
You're getting, wait till you're already a badass. Something happens when you have the first child, something clicks.
Yeah.
I got a lot more serious and a lot meaner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm going to be scared of you once you got a kid. It's going to be a whole new level.
I'm already making the classroom. I've got a bunch of books from all the textbooks are all from the 1800s, right? Because, I'm going back the old way. All the mathematics books that I bought are 1880s or so.
When you look at that first child in your arms, and all this stuff, it's the biggest ritual ever. Everything just clicks, and it's like the confidence level goes way up, the seriousness, and every attribute you had intensifies.
Well, that's going to be pretty intense then. But, Masako and I, we were discussing, my wife is Masako, we were discussing, what's the word? It's not happy, it's not excited, it's more than that.
I love how you're doubling down. In such a time, people say, I'm not going to have kids. No, we have to bet with our children in times of crisis. In fact, statistics show during the worst times, we have more kids.
Really?
Humanity has that instinct, yeah.
Well, that's what, so, the word that she came up with was blessed. And that's it. I feel immensely blessed. And, it's time to be good parents. That's it. And good teachers.
Where are you deciding to stay when the baby comes?
Part United States and part Japan, because I want baby to be all over America and Japan and Asia. I mean, because this is going to be an international baby.
Well, you got to bring the baby here.
I will. And, we'll wait until first thing the baby's going to learn is martial arts, of course. Music, that sort of thing, mathematics.
You know it's a boy or girl yet?
Don't know because we don't want to mess with the ultrasound crap. Right. No, it's not because we want to wait.
Ultrasound can be dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, we just don't trust any of that stuff.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's smart. We're almost out of time. 4-minute closing statement.
Well, we're Americans. And, actually, people watch your show all over the world. Some of us are Americans, but all of us are in a fight for our lives. But everybody watching this, all of our families have been through wars. There's no exception. Everybody watching this, their family's been through war. If you're watching this, your family's been through famine. Your family has been through pandemic.
That's right. Our ancestors already hacked it. We can do it.
We are the descendants of very tough people, or we wouldn't even be sitting here. Everybody. There's no exception to that. So it's our turn. That's it.
You just got to activate that dormant instinct.
That's right. This is it. I mean, this is otherwise we're going to watch our countries fall apart, and they're going to melt into oblivion and be forgotten. That's what'll happen.
Still got a couple minutes here. What else you want to dump on us?
Right. And well, come over and visit me in Japan. And well, I'm not going to take everybody in with me, but the thing that I'm doing, the thing that I'm doing so much in Asia is just like I've told Misako, she can't defend Japan. She's as much of a Japanese patriot as I am an American patriot, which is pretty intense, right? And I said, you can't defend Japan by spending all your time in Japan. You got to go around the world.
All over the world, fights everywhere.
So I took her all over the world. I took her, gave her a PhD.
How'd you meet her?
In a riot in front of the White House. Yeah, actually, right in front of it was an Antifa riot. So I'd like to thank the fascists of Antifa.
Well, tell me how that happened. Did you protect her or something?
No, I had
Honey Bear took care of her.
No, I'd written 3 books that are only in Japanese, and people had said that she should come find me, and it took me months to check her out. Actually, so finally I checked her out.
You finally checked her out, good.
Well, and then she came, and there we were in the riot in front of the White House, and she was very brave, actually, and saw her do all kinds of things and took her down to Darien and different places. Before I took her to the jungle, we did a 4-day fast because I wanted to see if she could take days without food, because that's when you'll see emotions come out. She was steady as they go. So I was like, okay.
Wow, putting them through the paces.
So I was like, let's go to the jungle. And I took her down, and ever since that time, we've been all over the world looking at all kinds of stuff. And now we're having a baby.
That's exciting. You look happy.
I'm more than happy. I'm way beyond blessed. I mean, I wake up in the morning thinking about it, go to bed thinking about it. It's like every 5 minutes.
What's the due date?
September 26th, right? So, yeah, and that's a whole subject in itself, because we're going to midwife it, and they make it hard to midwife it in Japan. And I was thinking about coming back here, but that's kind of, you don't want to get a very pregnant woman on an airplane for a long flight, because, they're making midwifery difficult in Japan.
Yeah, well, not here. You got to come to Texas.
If I can get a pressurized airplane, I'll bring her back. Right? Yeah, but I don't want to,
I hear you.
This phase.
How do people find Michael Yon online?
Substack. Go to Substack and go to my name, Michael Yon, or Big Honey, or on X. But Substack is the best. That's where I put my videos up and that sort of thing.
And you spell Yon 3 letters.
Y-O-N, Yankee, Oscar, November. But no Yankee. I'm from the South.
All right. Well, good job being back. You're usually right here in Texas. You've been running around for years. It's good to have you here, buddy.
Thank you.
There is a massive sale going on.